Okay, let's use a percentage method of multiplication on these two numbers. 88 multiplied by, and I don't know, just take 31. Yes, so how we do it? I mean, it's easy anyway. I mean, if you just multiply it by Vedic math, you would say, okay, 88 multiplied by 31. The first step is to multiply the extreme rights. So basically you get this, and then you do the cross multiplication, which is 8 3s are 24 plus 8 1s let's say you do this cross multiplication. Yeah, so it's 32, and you put a 2 here, and you put a 3 here, and then you say this is the carry. So 8 3s are, and the next or the last step, so this is the third step, this was the first step, and the third step you say 24 plus 3 is 27. So this is the result, and this is just one way to do it. Or there could be an alternate way, which is percentage method. So in percentage method, if you have to do the same calculation, you would say 88 multiplied by 31. So 88 can be represented as just 80 plus 10% of 80, right? So 80 plus 10%, yeah, so 80 plus 10% of this thing. Now this additional 10% is nothing but 8, so you would say 80 plus 8 is 88. Now, and then you multiply 80 by 31 first, and once you get this number here, then as a next step you multiply it by, or you add 10%. So let's look at, so because multiplying 80 and 31 is quite easy, because yeah, you would clearly know in your head that it is basically 2480, right? So you would say, okay, if you're doing it in your head, then you just say 2480 plus 10% on top, and 10% on top is basically roughly 250, and then you can add 250 or 248 to be precise. So this is the calculation which will go in your head, and then you will just come to a number which is 72. So this is the number which comes via the, let's check whether 2720, yes, exactly, the number is same, which means that we did it correctly. Let's have a relook at it so that you understand it properly. So basically this thing here at top, this is nothing but multiplication of 80 with 31, which you can actually do very easily in your head. And you also know that if you have to go to 88, then you have to just add 10% on top. So if you were to very simply write it through, then this was the task, right? And then you said, okay, 80 plus 10% of 80 multiplied by 31. And so you multiplied first 80 by 31, and then you added this thing here, the 10% thing later on. So you said, okay, I write first what is 31 multiplied by 80, and then on top I just add this 10%. So 10% is nothing but whatever, 248 on top of it. So basically the idea is to break one of these numbers into percentage and then get the number. If you have to do a very rough calculation, actually it's even much easier, because what you would say is that, let's say this was the task given to you, right? You can just say that this 31 can be broken down into 30 plus 1/3 of a percent. How did I come to that? 1/3 of percent. So basically 1%. So what will be? Let's have a relook. Let's have a quick relook what we are saying here. So this is clear. Until this point it should be clear, right? So we are saying, let's break down 31, and what is left inside is basically 1 by 30. And what 1 by 30 is, basically it's nothing but just 3%. So you could say 88 multiplied by not 31 but 1 plus 3% of 30, right? And then it becomes very easy, because then you just multiply 88 by 30, which is what? Entropies, and yeah, 2060. Sometimes it could be challenging. And then you, on top, you have to add 3%. And now 3% is easy, because you just say, okay, 10% is 264, and 1/3 of that is basically what, 90. So you, and these are approximate calculations. Now if you do this, because in reality this 3% is should have been 3.33%. So, but which is not. So for the ease of calculation, we have just taken it this 3%. So if you add these two, then you would get what, 2730, right? 2730. Now let's look at what we got here. 2728 was the result. Yeah. So basically this is the thing, that you have two options if you're multiplying. One is to, if you're multiplying by the percentage method, you either break this one down into percentage, or you break this one down into percentage, and then you calculate. So 80 plus 10% of 80, that is one option. And then the second option is to break this one down and say 30 plus 3% is 31. So, and you would say, okay, now it's very easy because I can do all the calculations. 31 is 30 plus 3%. 32 is 30 plus roughly 7% of, yeah, or 33 is basically 30 plus 10%. So it will be difficult for you in the beginning to think in the percentage terms when you're doing multiplication, but I think once you get hold of this method, just to think about it more, then I think you will be doing much faster calculations, especially in exams where you have to do really fast calculations, or even in real life when you have to do calculations. You just don't use the calculators, and it's much easier, much cool, much funky. And on top of that, you're actually using your head and not a calculator, which sharpens your mind. So next video we'll also see some more examples of this percentage multiplication, which will help us to understand this a bit more.